let's keep this talk. Let's keep this topic on Blizzard and go right into it. Tang, thoughts?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to
Dragonflight.
start. Dragonflight.
Yeah, just start talking.
So by now, most people have heard the news, right? Dragonflight. Next WoW expansion is Dragonflight. Uh, there's the the box features, right? New zone, return of the dragons to Azeroth, return of fantasy, coming back to Azeroth. New like race class combo. It's most restricted introduction of a race class combo into the game to date, because it's a new race and a new class, and that new class can only be that new race, and that new race can only be that new class.
Yep.
Um,
Which is what I thought was odd,
but it's because of the way it works. They're like, well, because we're restricting it, we can kind of go crazy with, like, we get to basically build a whole class out of racials, right? Like, this is just shit they can do and only they can do. So, like, let them go crazy and see how if it comes up with something that's genuinely more fun, because they could kind of go wild and didn't have to make it easily assimilated into every race, then maybe you're onto something. Then it comes to, and that's kind of like just basically what Dragonflight's race class combo, upgrade UI, like basic box features. It's the stuff kind of behind the game and the people behind the game that are making huge shifts. You're officially entering a new era. Warcraft, there's been a few already, right? You had the original era, which was Classic and BC and Wrath.
the best.
And then you had the kind of the bring the player, not the class era, which basically is Cataclysm, Wrath. I mean, not Cataclysm, Cataclysm, Mop, and Warlords. There we go.
Yep.
And then the Legion era, which was Legion BFA and Shadowlands.
We don't talk about Shadowlands.
That's which people are just going to call really the borrowed power era, because every expansion came with its own kind of overblown borrowed power system. So your character reaches a maximum level of the natural progression, and then you have all these external systems, the Legion artifact weapons, the Azerite necklace, and then the Covenant, and all this stupid crap in Shadowlands.
We don't talk about Shadowlands.
Where you progressed your power like parallel and sideways. Your character power remains stagnant at that level cap, and then your borrowed power then scales up from these external systems. And these external systems get ditched at the end of expansion, and you move to a new one. So you basically got nerfed every time you finished an expansion. Look how strong I am, look how strong I am.
Oh.
And they kind of said, like, we realized, yeah, that feels really bad, and every time we did it, we'd spend all these resources like creating this borrowed power system for progression, and it had some uses at first, but the back end of it became so problematic because you kept playing catch up every expansion. Every expansion was just trying to catch up to how you felt at the end of the last one. So your character would feel great, and then it would feel like crap for 6 months when the expansion changed over, until you got re-geared up and built up a new borrowed power system, and then they would take it away again. And we fundamentally took a look at how we approached these in the past. That would be Ian, the game director. I said what used to fill that role was really talents, and they'd expand the talent tree. So even though you reach the end of an expansion, you got to a new expansion, and maybe you go into gear that is that's what they did from classic to BC and BC to Wrath.
Frozen
All your
Throne.
all your tier sets had all these extra bonus features on them,
Which were great,
and things that your 2-set bonus, your 4-set bonus, that enhanced the way your class played and made you feel stronger, faster, better, etc.
Yeah, so you didn't go into this new area feeling like completely weak. Like I remember.
Well, as soon as you got to that first area and you did like one quest,
You already got a new piece of
the
gear.
loot was so much better that you unequipped that stuff, so you lost it really fast.
Yeah.
Because once you had a full set of questing gear, not even full set, like 2 or 3 pieces of questing gear of the expansion first zone, they did this on purpose. Yeah, like your health would shoot from 3,000 to 7,000.
I was gonna say it was like 7 or 8, if I remember
Like,
correctly, depending on whatever class it was.
yeah, but that was the concept. It was just, and with the amount of damage that enemies were doing, you needed that gear to survive.
Yep.
So you actually lost power because you lost set numbers. You lost extra features on your spells, but you gained raw stat from your gear, and because the enemies got harder and scaled to the raw stat, the power you lost didn't feel as significant because it wasn't working as well. But how did you make up for that feeling of losing that uniqueness of flavor? Was you got more talent points, and you got a bigger tree. So all of a sudden, yeah, like you lost that stuff, but now you have more talents to use, and you, oh, look at this new stuff I can do. So you were always feeling you're progressing, not playing catch up. So that's why they decided to bring back talent trees, but with a few tweaks to try to address some of the problems that made that system collapse on itself, and why they shifted away from it. Like, you don't want to just go straight back to the way it was, because they went away from it for a reason. But I guess they're realizing now they should have modified it instead of getting away from it. I mean, since they did modify it, but they modified it too much.
Oh yeah, when you have those many levels, like that's a lot of talents to keep up with. To have it,
I was getting up to like 120 point deep trees, and it was just like,
yeah, that's insane.
And the trees are so deep to play that class, you weren't really hybriding in other specs because those deep talents were just too good. So you didn't have those interesting and unique hybrid templates that people were creating back in Classic, and even to an extent Burning Crusade. Because I know Fury Arm stuff was still a thing in the Crusade of the Burning. And interesting development. Like, I only saw this last night. Okay, so another mark on like the whole. So the design team and the directive team for World of Warcraft has been under fire for years for ignoring player feedback.
Mist of Pandaria, basically.
Well, Mist of Pandaria is looked at as being extremely.
That one was good. I played the crap out of that one.
Yeah, like people complained at the time because it looked like Kung Fu Panda, but then like
yes,
it ended up being one of the best content cycles. It being one of the most creative and free ones. Like it's very fondly remembered actually. Yeah, especially with the power of nostalgia is doubled down.
Yeah, it reminded me of Wrath.
Yeah. So, well, they both brought new classes.
Yep.
Like, so there's a certain trend. If an expansion has a new class in it, it's going to be a good one. Wrath, Mist, Legion. They're 3 of the top expansions in the history of the game. But they had that design philosophy. They ignored a lot of their content creators. They ignored a lot of the feedback they got. They got a little too heavily invested in the loud 1%, which is not a problem that's unique to gaming. The vocal minority. And they stopped making the game for the people like you and me that really aren't going to sit there and stream for 12 hours doing 50 pulls on a boss. It's just not going to happen. I'd rather just go find a stupid bumblebee taking a shit in the woods.
I'd rather go outside. I'd rather work out.
I'd rather go outside and
Yeah.
actually go in the woods.
Yeah. Lost in the woods.
Question for everybody: Does
they
Ray
kind of
poop in the
acknowledge
woods?
that.
Can you hear it?
No. We have a video. Yeah, so one of the biggest vocal people in the community and the largest streamer for it is Asmongold.
He quit like a couple months ago, didn't he?
I mean, yeah, he shifted attention away, but he became so big. Like Asmongold became so big, he no longer requires Warcraft to be successful. He can just log on and have talking streams, and he plays 14 and a whole bunch of other crap. Right? But it's still where you got to start. It's still very different. He still hosts like the Allcraft podcast, basically. And he still wanted to succeed. He just hated the direction it's going. So I saw last night, and I listened to it. He actually had an interview with Ian Costas, which has never happened. Ian Costas was basically going around and having interviews with the biggest content creators on YouTube, talking about DragonFlight. He talked to Talias and Nevitel, he talked to Hazelnutty, now he talked to Asmon, and that was the one no one thought would ever happen, because Asmon and the game creators have basically been locking horns for years. Like, they call him toxic and all that stuff, and I wouldn't call him toxic, a little over the top maybe, but that's how he got big.
Yeah, there's toxic and there's just over the top. I mean, there's a big difference and everything like that. Toxic is what just got banned from the Tekken fighting scene yesterday, where you're making like death threats and making slurs and everything like that, and just making people feel completely uncomfortable. Asmon's not that. He's just over the top.
Yeah, he just says shit like, if you want to, like when he thinks something's gonna be really cool or be badass, he's gonna be like, yeah, go big dick. Like, you just gotta be big dick. Like, and I'm like, well, we can relate to that saying.
I was gonna say he stole that from us.
Saying that for how long?
He stole that. He stole that. Like, he watched us like one time. He was like, I'm gonna use that.
Yeah. This is BDR mean.
Yeah.
But does he have hats with it on it though? That's the thing. Merch.
Probably. I'd be surprised if there wasn't at least fan-made merch that just says "Go Big."
No regrets.
We missed out on the big train right there, guys. Whoops.
So yeah, the top comment on that was literally, "There's no bigger marker of the change in design philosophy that the team has gone through than the fact that the game director is now having a 40-minute interview with Asmongold." Like, you never thought you'd see this happen. And they had a great interview, and they talked about the exact same things I talked about right now, because I just pulled from it. That design philosophy, asking questions about this and that, and would it come back, where they're going with certain things, how are they going to fix PvP. And he actually owned up with answers like, yeah, that felt bad. Yeah, that felt bad. And we want to address these things, and we're addressing evergreen content, things they're going to carry forward for years in the game, instead of something that's going to last 18 months until people start getting ready for the expansion, then we ditch it and move on.
Yeah, there's not a lot of lasting things that want to try and keep you in. Like, it's usually expansion, 6 months content, 6 months content, 6 months patch for the new expansion. There's probably bigger gaps, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, it mimicked the Activision like cadence of rollouts, right? Oh, you're playing that Call of Duty, now play this Call of Duty. It was whatever thing they could make exciting and unique and put on the box features and everything, instead of worrying about making the core game better. It was what got enough people like, oh, look at all these new things. Pre-order. Oh, it's not that great.
Definitely
6
sucked
months
me
later,
in.
here's zombies.
Yeah.
Definitely sucked me in the last time because I was actually excited for once, and I bought the more expensive one.
Oh, Osmond went on and said, we were questioning the game, and I questioned Ian that what would he say is the wins they could take away from Shadowlands? And
I got nothing.
Even Ian he didn't have much to say about the way it went, right? He said, well, I'll give him one thing. He said it narrative wise, like regardless of how you feel about the jailer and Sylvanas and all that stuff, the biggest win from Shadowlands was that we created something entirely new. Every expansion, we keep digging further and further into the things that were Warcraft 3 and the lore of here, and like, where can we go next? Who can we pull out next? Like, how do we create a new thing? Add something to know. And this time we went in a completely new direction. And while the main narrative might not have hit with everyone, what was nice was the zones and building out those zones and creating this world that felt different but similar. And in those first weeks, everyone kind of spending all their times in those zones, and that was when the game was super popular and a lot of people were feeling good about it. So just the creation of those art assets and unique settings and whole things that kind of expanded the scope of the shared world of the game. And I'm like, yeah, I can see that. Like, now you've extended the envelope of what is the game's world, and people know that, like, these things die and go to Ardenweald and Revendreth and all that stuff. Then there's Gothic architecture, and there's basically vampires and all that stuff. That's all part of it, and things they can pull from, but nobody wants to go back to that specific period of mechanics and storytelling. But the assets could be extremely valuable.
Yeah, I will give it that. It at least looked different than previous expansions, because normally it's just like, oh, here's a race you've already seen before, and they've set up shop right here. Here's this main area where everybody congregates. Here's a cave. Here you go.
Yeah, and the zones were... Blizzard, our team, always knocks out. They always do. And speaking of zones, the Dragonflight are going to be so big they actually have to increase the draw distance again. Just so they can get a sense of scope of being like almost open world. I mean, open world it is. I say almost open world because the last 2 expansions have had more loading screens than like any period in previous games, so it stopped feeling like an open world.
Yeah, I felt like it happened every time.
The whole traveling on the mana worm through the tunnel was literally then just masking a loading screen.
Oh, yeah.
They were just trying to make it look different. Like, oh, you're just traveling. No, it's a fucking loading screen.
We know what it is. We know what it is.
Crawling through a hole.
And BFA had 2 small, like, islands, like little 3-zone islands. There was a lot of crap in them, but to go between the Horde and Alliance Island, it was all just loading screen. Which was the way it was in the original continent, but not on islands, on entire continents.
Exactly. Like, oh, here you go. Here's the classic scene.
Like
okay.
the load screen between Kultiris and Troll Island, whatever the fuck it's called, in BFA, like, that'd be the equivalent of having to have a load screen to go from the human lands, and like, this might even be stretching it too, like, to go up to the dwarf lands.
So from
like
Stormwind to
Iron...
Iron...
Griffin hit a wall on the way to Ironforge. It's like,
yeah,
loading. But it's not. It's completely open. and it's open more, and it goes all the way open undersea. Like this huge, massive openness, and then you over here like, ah, man,
Load.
that water's
Load.
20 feet away.
And like I said before, it's not like the graphics have really changed too
Well,
much.
they're pushing as far as they can get the engine to go, really, and that's something they're going to have to address again in the future. How they rebuild it while keeping the code intact, because it'd be too costly to remake it.
Yeah, at this point, they'd have to remake
At that point, just release a new World of Warcraft. Call it World of Warcraft 2.
Well, I mean, that's essentially what they're trying to avoid. You basically lose your player investment, right? So you have these millions of accounts on Warcraft, and a lot of them stay around because they have so much time invested. They get that, and they get that sense of time investment. They don't want to lose that time investment, regardless of it being a fallacy. Like, you don't get it back, but they have that character that's persisted and those achievements, and like they can go back and see their PvP kills and everything.
I mean, there's got to be a way where they can.
Yeah, you
roll
clean
that
slate it
over.
and go to WoW 2. They'll be like, oh well, here's my chance to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, Ray's got a little bit of a point. There could be a way that they could roll everything over to WoW 2. Just they rebuild it from the ground up, and then just roll everything over so no one loses any of that stuff. Like, and make it
Well,
look.
they did.
And make
It's
it
called
look.
Cataclysm.
Well, and make it
And
look
then they
prettier.
did it again. When was the model upgrade? Warlords?
Yeah.
And they rebuilt all the character models and started rebuilding all the monster models. Like, look at the way the models look today versus how they looked back in
2004.
vanilla. Yeah. They rebuilt all that shit on the same skeleton. And they've done it, and they're going to have to do it again if they want to keep that, like, this whole spiel going.
God, the amount of time you got to put into that is, oof.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
fine. You know, millions of money,
it's a cash
millions of
cow.
monies.
Like, they'll keep doing it as long as it keeps making all this money.
There's millions
Yeah.
of monies that they've made off this game.
Millions
Warcraft
and millions of dollars of the Rocks fans.
has paid its investment for the company multiple times over.
Like, you heard a tenfold. How about a millionfold? That's just what it's been doing. I mean, between that and, their Call of Duty beast and the zombies that they put out, it's just like, you got Scrooge McDuck vaults in fucking Activision Blizzard right now.